With the trade deadline coming closer and trade rumors heating up, we're going to be looking at an article that dives into some possible moves that Brad Stevens can make with this roster to either send out a player on this team or possibly even promote one as well. Who will fit better into Joe Mazzulla's lineup and who will be this roster once the trade deadline finishes? We'll be diving into all of that and looking at all the possibilities ahead for the Celtics in this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. Welcome back to this episode. You guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and support, and we're really appreciative over here on the channel. So if you do enjoy the content, make sure to continue to hit that like button. Without further ado, though, let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. And then we're going to be discussing some possible Celtics trade talks. As we know with this Celtics team, it is a little bit difficult to do trades, but we are going to be looking at a possible report at some possible moves that the Celtics could be making ahead of this trade deadline. We know it's difficult for the Celtics to make moves for multiple reasons. One, are in the second apron, which restricts them from making multiple moves, trading certain players. Two, the Celtics are the defending NBA champions and don't have many holes on this roster. Therefore, it makes it difficult for this team to make any significant upgrade. And therefore, this team doesn't need to make any major moves. So therefore, no shakeup is realistically needed. But the Celtics could have some moves on the latter end of the roster that could make or break their bank or possibly help them in their championship run. So we're going to be looking at those ideas in this article here. We want to get to it real quick, courtesy of Chris Forsberg of NBC Sports Boston. And in this article, he breaks NBA trade season begins. Will Celtics make any roster changes? And he dives into this right away. As we're going to look at the restrictions that the Celtics face. As like I said, the Celtics are in the second apron, which means they cannot aggregate contracts in a trade. Therefore, the Celtics could not take a player like Jaden Springer and a player like Baylor Scheierman and combine said contracts to get a $6 million player. The Celtics can only do one-for-one trades as well, as therefore the Celtics have to do that, and the restrictions on these trades is that the Celtics can't take more money than they send out. The Celtics also have a limitation on the buyout market, in which the Celtics cannot pick up a player that is bought out that it makes more than the NTMLE, the non-tax paying mid-level exception. I believe it is around $12 to $14 million. I can do my checkup on that, but to my knowledge, if a player is bought out above that restriction, the Celtics can also not pursue them. But we're going to dive into two possible players that could get moved related from Forsberg and kind of talked and chatted about in this team as we look at his potential trade needs for the Celtics. And he says the Celtics need some wing depth. He mentions how Jordan Walsh has made some progress, but he doesn't think that Jordan Walsh can kind of take over to be that wing off the bench for this team. In the playoffs. And I kind of agree with Forsberg on this. I wanted to believe that a player like Walsh could really take over, really transcend into this team. But unfortunately, he is still a little bit young and a little bit raw and still needs a little bit more growth to earn himself a rotational role in my eyes. He's still been solid on the defensive side, just lacks a little bit of speed and I think some progression, not necessarily in the G League, but seeing him go down playing a couple times, him playing with this squad and kind of just practicing with this team will continue to get him better and prepared for next season when he's ready to take up that role. There was also a possibility of discussing some added big man help as well with the Boston Celtics, as the Celtics have shown that obviously with Kristaps Porziņģis and Al Horford being back, they still are a star-studded lineup, and without them, they still were a star-studded lineup. But we have seen the interior presence from the Celtics be weakened, and with Kristaps Porziņģis dealing with injuries since he's come back, Al Horford still needing that rest, I think the Celtics could also explore a possibility of going and getting a big. And with those decisions, it leaves the Celtics kind of with two possible trade pieces. One, they could go out and trade a player in Jaden Springer, who has been on the trade block for this Celtics team, I believe, since the start of the year when they ultimately considered signing Lonnie Walker to that 15th man roster spot. They tried to move Jaden Springer. Teams wanted the Celtics to attach draft capital because he makes that $4 million, and therefore the Celtics were unable to move a player in Springer to sign Walker and had to keep Springer for this season. And the Celtics have been looking to use Springer as a trade piece, as ultimately he has kind of fallen out of this rotation, and even with players that play a similar skill set like Jrue Holiday when they sit out, Springer is not gifted that time, as we saw G League our two-way player and G League standout Drew Peterson get that time over him. And Peterson could be that player that could take that roster spot as well from Springer. Oops, sorry once again, if the Celtics do explore to do a trade. If we want to look at the stats on both of these players, looking at Peterson, we can see he's obviously been given some run with the Celtics team. And even though he hasn't had the greatest numbers, he's had performances where he's had 24, 25 minutes. Where we want to look at Springer's last 5 games, the highest we can see is right around 5 or 9. So therefore, he is past Springer in the rotation as a two-way guy, and Springer provides a lot the Celtics do need. He's a shooter off the bench. He can play that wing position, and he could be that guy that the Celtics do ultimately want to promote. So therefore, the Celtics kind of get themselves in a toss-up. What do they ultimately want to do? Do they want to trade a player like Springer, who is making $4 million on this Celtics roster? If we want to look at this team, he is making more than players that are on this team getting minutes. He's making more than Neemias Queta this season. He's making more than Luke Cornett. He's making more than Sam Hauser, who did sign that extension, but it does not kick into next year. And all 3 of those players play a vital, more pivotal role for the Celtics in this rotation than Springer, as Springer has seen lack of minutes in that guard rotation as it is so deep and with the immersion of Peyton Pritchard. Therefore, I think it's best for both parties, even though I do have an attachment to Springer, as he does remind me of Marcus Smart, and he is that gritty, grindy defender, to move off of that contract, to save the Celtics some money in the luxury tax this season, but also to save the Celtics the headache of either losing him in free agency for nothing, or ultimately having to shell out a contract to a player in Springer to get no playing time. I think it's best for both parties to kind of part ways, for Springer to find a destination that is more suitable for him, a team that is more likely to give him some run, a younger team or a team maybe in the middle of its rebuild stage at the trade deadline that could take a flyer on Springer to give him some minutes. I think he could really excel and be one of the top tier defenders in this NBA league, as he's been able to show that he can guard players like Luka and Kyrie and Curry one-on-one. And I think that he can show that if he is proven development. Just unfortunately with the Celtics, it's just not there. And I think that if they do trade Springer, it could be for a possibility of that 3-and-D wing. I know some people have thrown the names of Torrey Craig, Amir Coffey, similar around there, as they fit in that under $4 million, Javonte Green from the Pelicans. And I think all 3 of those players could be names the Celtics do look to acquire. But don't be shocked if the Celtics do not go and bring a player back, as obviously with the Celtics, we could see them bring up a player in Jrue Peterson as well. Sorry, I had a little bit of a brain fart there, but we could see them bring up a player like Jrue Peterson, have him excel, and he could be that guy for the Celtics team, and they could still hold that roster spot open. They could trade Springer for some draft capital to a team, and then wind up bringing up Peterson as that 14th guy and still saving room, possibly for another 2-way to be converted like J.D. Davidson or Anton Watson, or for the possibility to sign a guy that gets cut or waived under that non-tax mid-level exception that the Celtics can sign them. Ultimately, the Celtics do have a lot of options. It's not guaranteed that they are going to make a move, but I truly think that the writing is on the wall for Jaden Springer in this Celtics team as we're getting closer and closer to the trade deadline, as his name has been brought in trades since the beginning of this season, and he also has fallen in the rotation now. And that's not to hate on Jaden Springer, but that's just to say that I wish him the best of luck in the next team, that if he does get traded to, that he can succeed, because I truly do believe him as being one of the better on-ball defenders in this league at his young age. And if he gets that opportunity to shine, I truly think he could be a gem for some teams across the league. But unfortunately for the Celtics, they just have Derrick White, they have Jrue Holiday, they have Peyton Pritchard. There's not enough space. And for Peterson, he could be a shooter off the wing if a player like Sam Hauser isn't really there, or if the Celtics don't want to go out and acquire a player for Jaden Springer. If there's a team that wants Jaden Springer that they don't like a guy back to bring back, they ultimately could just sign Peterson and have him fill that role. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. If you're the Boston Celtics, do you trade Jaden Springer? Do you bring up Jrue Peterson? What's your ultimate move? If you are Brad Stevens, drop it down below in the comment section. I love to hear what you guys have for thoughts. Majority of those thoughts are on these trade videos, so I love what you guys come up with. And if you are trading Jaden Springer, are you bringing up Jrue Peterson, or are you going out and getting a 3-and-D wing? Like I said, if the Celtics do acquire a player for Springer, he has to make under $4 million. So make sure you do some checks before you drop some comments. But like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning into this content. If you do enjoy these videos, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and come into the stream. It's going to be starting around 10 minutes or so. So if you're at this point in the video, stream will probably be going. If you're watching this video right when it comes out, so come on by and pop by and hang out with us as we discuss this Celtics team. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. Catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics. Peace out, everyone.